Sign this contract, Caitlin, or by tomorrow morning, every client you have will know you're under federal investigation. My brother Tyler wasn't asking for help. He was slamming a document onto the desk that would destroy my career if I didn't agree to become the interim CFO, a fancy title for the person who takes the fall for his crimes. My parents, Mabel and Clinton, didn't flinch. They just sat there, watching me, waiting for me to ruin my life so they could save their sons. Before I tell you what was actually in that contract and why signing it would have sent me to federal prison for 10 years, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this story travels. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing the tears that were burning the backs of my eyes. Instead, I forced my breathing to slow down. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. The room smelled of lemon polish and the stale, copper scent of fear, mostly Tyler's. I reached out and picked up the contract. My hand didn't tremble. They had made a critical error in judgment. They thought they were cornering their disappointment of a daughter. The one who left home at 22 because she refused to be a prop in their family photos. They forgot who I had become in the 7 years since. They forgot that I wasn't just Caitlin anymore. I was the founder of a crisis management firm that specialized in forensic accounting. I cleaned up corporate messes for a living. I looked for patterns in chaos. And looking at these papers, the pattern was screaming at me. I flipped to page 3. Clause 14b. Retroactive liability. Page 7. Shell company transfers to Logistics Holdings LLC. Page 12. The indemnification waiver. It took me less than 30 seconds to diagnose the cancer in their financials. This wasn't a job offer. This was a suicide pact. They weren't asking me to save the company. They were asking me to retroactively sign off on 3 years of tax fraud and embezzlement. Tyler hadn't just mismanaged the accounts. He had looted them. And if I signed my name on the dotted line as interim CFO, the federal indictment wouldn't have his name on it. It would have mine. I looked up. Tyler was breathing hard, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Mabel was inspecting her fingernails, refusing to meet my eyes. Clinton was staring at the grandfather clock in the corner, the rhythmic tick-tock the only sound in the suffocating room. They were terrified. They were cornered animals, and they were trying to throw me to the wolves to buy themselves time to escape. A cold, clinical clarity washed over me. It replaced the hurt. It replaced the anger. This wasn't family anymore. This was a hostile negotiation. And in a hostile negotiation, you never let the other side know you're smarter than them. You let them think they've won until the moment you close the trap. I let my shoulders slump. I forced my lower lip to quiver. I dropped the contract back onto the desk as if it were heavy, letting my hand shake visibly. I don't understand, I whispered, pitching my voice to sound thin and scared. Federal investigation? Tyler, what did you do? It doesn't matter what I did, Tyler snapped, but I saw his shoulders relax. He bought it. He thought I was breaking. What matters is fixing it. You sign this, we use your clean record to reassure the banks, and the investigation goes away. It's standard procedure. But prison? I looked at my mother. Mom? It's just a precaution, sweetheart, Mabel said, finally looking at me. Her voice was soft, dripping with that fake maternal warmth that used to fool me when I was a child. We just need to protect the family name. We need you to be brave. Brave. That was their code word for compliant. I need a minute, I said, pressing my fingers to my temples. I feel sick. Can I have a glass of water? Fine, Tyler scoffed. But make it quick. He turned to the sidebar to pour the water. In that split second of distraction, I slid my hand under the table. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't need to. Muscle memory took over. I swiped up, tapped the icon for my encrypted messaging app, and typed 3 words to the only person in the world I trusted, my Aunt Teresa. The retired judge who had taught me that justice isn't given. It's taken. It's happening. Protocol B. I felt the phone buzz once against my palm. Confirmation received. Tyler slammed a glass of water down in front of me. I took it with 2 hands, sipping slowly, letting the condensation cool my burning skin. I wasn't just buying time anymore. I was waiting for the ink to dry on their warrants. Okay, I said, setting the glass down. I'm terrified, Tyler. I don't want to go to jail. But if this saves the family, I'll do it. But I can't sign this version. Why not? Clinton barked, speaking for the first time. Because it's not enough, I lied, looking him dead in the eye. If I'm going to fix this, I need full access. I need to move the money myself. And I have an investor who can cover the debt tonight. But he needs guarantees. I saw the greed flash in Clinton's eyes, overriding his caution. The hook was set. Now, I just had to reel them in. The grandfather clock ticked. 1, 2, 3. While Clinton scrambled to find a pen that worked, I stared at the back of Tyler's head. He was vibrating with a mix of adrenaline and arrogance, thinking he'd won. He always thought he'd won. That was the dynamic of this house. Tyler broke things. I swept up the glass. And my parents praised him for not cutting his feet. For years, I asked myself why I stayed. Why did I spend my 20s balancing Tyler's checkbooks instead of building my own life? It wasn't loyalty. It was conditioning. That's the trap of normalizing cruelty. It's like living next to a train station. The first few nights, the noise keeps you awake. You scream. You cover your ears. But after a year, you don't even hear the train anymore. You sleep right through the shaking walls. I had slept through the shaking walls of this family for 22 years. I thought being useful was the price of admission for being loved. I looked at the empty space on the bookshelf where my high school debate trophies used to be. They were gone now, replaced by Tyler's participation awards from a golf tournament he came last in. I remembered the exact moment the train noise finally woke me up. It was 7 years ago. I had come home from my junior year of college, excited to show them my first major forensic case study. I walked down the hall to the sunroom, the small, dusty corner of the estate they had allowed me to use as a design studio. It was where I kept my vintage Singer sewing machine. It was where I went when the noise of their expectations got too loud. I opened the door, and my breath hitched. The room was gutted. My fabric bolts were gone. My drafting table was gone. The walls were painted a garish, neon blue. In the center of the room sat a massive, leather gaming chair and a VR rig that cost more than my tuition. Tyler needed a space to decompress, Mabel had said, walking past me with a basket of laundry. She didn't even look at me. His job is very stressful, Caitlin. He needs an escape. Where is my machine? I asked, my voice trembling. Where are my designs? Oh, that clutter? She waved a hand toward the service entrance. The landscapers took it out this morning. Check the bins before they leave. I ran outside. It was raining a cold, miserable Chicago drizzle. And there it was. My grandmother's Singer machine, the one she taught me to thread when I was 6, sitting upside down in a dumpster, half submerged in coffee grounds and yard waste. The cast iron arm was snapped. I stood there in the rain, staring at the only thing I truly loved, destroyed because Tyler needed to play video games. That was the day the daughter died, and the auditor was born. They thought they were just throwing away clutter. They didn't realize they were throwing away my blind loyalty. They laughed at me while I dragged that heavy, broken machine out of the dumpster, mud ruining my shoes. But they didn't know that mud would harden into concrete. I looked back at Tyler now. He was grinning at his phone, probably texting his bookie that a bailout was coming. They broke me then, I thought, watching Clinton finally test the ink on a fountain pen. But today, I'm the one holding the hammer. Here, I said, sliding a fresh stack of papers from my briefcase. My voice was steady, devoid of the girl who used to cry over broken machines. We need to move fast. The wire transfer window is closing. I wasn't just fixing their mess this time. I was documenting the crime scene. Clinton tested the fountain pen on a scrap of paper. The scratch of the nib was the only sound in the room, until Mabel reached out and placed her manicured hand over his wrist. Wait, Clinton, she said softly. She turned those ice-blue eyes toward me. Before we make this official, Caitlin needs to understand why we're doing this. She needs to know we're on her side. She opened a leather portfolio and slid a stack of printed screenshots across the desk. We saw these this morning, she whispered, her voice trembling with a performance that deserved an Oscar. People are saying terrible things about you online, honey. Professional forums, industry newsletters. They're calling you a fraud. I looked down at the papers. They were printouts from a forensic accounting message board. The posts accused me of cooking books for my last 3 clients. They claimed I was under investigation by the state board. They were vicious. They were also written by my mother. I recognized the syntax immediately. Who else uses the word unbecoming in an anonymous internet comment? Who else misuses semicolons in that exact, pretentious way? It's awful. Mabel sighed, shaking her head. But don't worry. Daddy and I have already spoken to a reputation manager. We can bury this. We can make it all go away. She leaned forward, her eyes wide with fake sincerity. We can keep you safe, Caitlin. But we can only do that if you're under the family umbrella. If you're our CFO, our legal team protects you. If you're out there on your own, well, who knows what might happen. It was a protection racket. Nice career you have there. Shame if something happened to it. They create the fire, then demand payment for the water. How? How much? I asked, keeping my voice shaky. To fix the accounts and the reputation? Tyler grinned, a shark sensing blood. $850,000. That clears the vendor backlog and pays the retainer for the PR crisis team. $850,000. That was exactly the amount missing from the employee pension fund. They weren't hiring a PR team. They were trying to plug the hole in the ship before the Department of Labor noticed the water rising, and that's when the final piece of their strategy clicked. It's called the glass cliff trap. In the corporate world, it's a phenomenon where companies only promote women or minorities to leadership positions during times of crisis, when the risk of failure is highest. Why? Because when the company inevitably crashes, they have a convenient scapegoat. See? We tried diversity. She failed. They weren't bringing me back because they respected my skills. They were putting me on the glass cliff. They wanted me to be the face of the bankruptcy. They wanted my signature on the tax returns so that when the FBI kicked down the door, Tyler could point a finger and say, "She was the CFO. She signed off on everything." They wanted me to be the captain of their sinking ship so they could escape in the only lifeboat. I looked at Mabel. She was smiling now, a tight, encouraging smile that didn't reach her eyes. She thought she had me. She thought the terrified little girl who used to beg for approval was sitting in this chair. But that girl was gone. Sitting in her place was a woman who knew that in a game of chicken, you don't swerve, you accelerate. "I can't believe you'd do that for me," I said, forcing a tear to roll down my cheek. "After I left, after everything, you'd still protect me?" "Of course," Clinton said, puffing out his chest. "Family takes care of family." "Okay," I sniffled, wiping my face. "Okay. I'll do it. But we have to move fast. My investor needs the paperwork now." I reached into my bag. "I have the transfer documents right here." I pulled a binder from my bag. It hit the desk with a heavy, satisfying thud. "I called in a favor." I lied, my voice trembling just enough to sell the performance. "My firm has a silent partner. He specializes in distressed assets. He agreed to front the $850,000 as a bridge loan to cover the vendor debts and the legal fees." Clinton reached for the binder, his eyes hungry, but I pulled it back. "Wait," I said, checking my watch. "We have a problem. My partner routes his capital through a Cayman holding company. The international wire window closes at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time." I looked up at the grandfather clock. "It is 4:56 p.m. That gives us exactly 4 minutes. If we miss that window, the funds won't clear until Monday morning. And by Monday morning, the Department of Labor auditors will be sitting in the lobby. Panic is a powerful anesthetic. It numbs your critical thinking. It blinds you to details. And right now, my parents were blind." "Give me the pen," Clinton snapped, sweat glistening on his upper lip. "I need signatures on everything," I said, flipping the binder open and spreading a fan of documents across the desk. "Standard procedure, NDAs, conflict of interest waivers, liability shields for the new investor. Just sign where the tags are." I pushed the stack toward them. There were 50 pages of dense, legal jargon. Most of it was fluff, standard boilerplate contracts I'd printed off the internet an hour ago. But buried in the middle, on page 42, was the only document that mattered. It was a confession of judgment disguised under the header, Personal Indemnification and Asset Guarantee. In the corporate world, this is the nuclear option. By signing it, they weren't just agreeing to the loan. They were legally admitting that the debt was caused by their own fraudulent actions. They were waiving their right to a trial. And most importantly, they were pledging their personal assets, the estate, their retirement accounts, their cars, as collateral to my holding company. If they read it, they would know. But they wouldn't read it. Not with 3 minutes on the clock. "Sign here," I pointed to a yellow tab. Clinton scribbled his signature without even looking at the page header. Scratch. Scratch. "And here?" Mabel signed next, her hand shaking. She looked up at me, her eyes wet. "You're saving us, Caitlin. We won't forget this." "I know you won't," I thought. "Neither will the bankruptcy court." 2 minutes, Tyler yelled, checking his phone. "Hurry up, Mom." He grabbed the pen from her hand. He didn't even pretend to look at the pages. He just wanted the money. He wanted the problem to go away so he could go back to being the golden boy. He slashed his signature across the bottom of page 42. "Done," he breathed, tossing the pen onto the desk. "We made it." I looked at the signatures. They were wet, messy, and legally binding. I gathered the papers into a neat stack, tapping the edges against the desk to align them. I slipped them back into my binder and zipped it shut. The sound of the zipper was loud in the quiet room. "Okay," Tyler said, leaning back in his chair, that smug grin returning to his face. "So, where is it? Did you get the confirmation text? Is the money in?" I looked at the grandfather clock. The minute hand clicked onto the 12. 5 o'clock. The window was closed. I sat down in the chair opposite them. I stopped trembling. I stopped slouching. I straightened my spine, and looked at my brother with the cold, dead eyes of an auditor who had just found the smoking gun. "Open your laptop, Tyler," I said calmly. "Check the accounts." He refreshed the banking portal again and again. "It's not there," he frowned. "Where's the transfer confirmation?" I turned my screen toward them. "I didn't send a wire," I said. "I sent a packet." A green progress bar hit 0. SEC whistleblower portal. Upload complete. "It was scheduled for 5 o'clock, I explained. "A forensic audit, shell company ledgers, and the recording of you admitting everything. The only way to stop it was a cancellation code. I chose not to use it." "You turned us in?" Tyler whispered. "And the IRS. And the Department of Labor." Clinton exploded. "You destroy us and gain nothing." "Wrong," I said. "Whistleblowers get paid. Under federal law. Exposing fraud over $1 million earns a mandatory cut. With penalties and pension theft, the government will seize everything and pay me about $1.5 million. I don't hire thieves," I added quietly. "I liquidate them," Tyler snapped. He smashed my laptop into the desk until it shattered. "There. No laptop. No proof." I looked at the wreckage. "It's cloud-based, Tyler." "It's already gone." The realization broke him. He sealed the room shutters down, doors locked, and grabbed a bronze statue. "You're not leaving. You're going to cancel it." "I can't." "It's done." He swung. The statue dented the wall inches from my head. I pulled out a burner phone. "Aunt Teresa? Did you hear that?" Her voice came through the speaker. "Officers, suspect is armed. Attempted unlawful imprisonment. Execute the breach." Sirens wailed. Blue and red lights flashed through the shutters. The statue fell from Tyler's hands. He collapsed. 6 months later, the estate was gone, seized, and auctioned by U.S. Marshals. Tyler sat in federal custody. My parents lost everything. I wasn't there for the furniture. I bought one item. My grandmother's broken Singer sewing machine for $50. As I drove away, my phone buzzed. Deposit received. U.S. Treasury. The Whistleblower Award. They wanted me to save the family. I audited it. And audits don't care about excuses, only numbers.